Back to the channel. My name is Crawford. This is Virginia is for Lowriders, and before we get into the video, I want to say thank you to all the new subscribers and the old ones. Y'all are finally starting to add up pretty quickly, so that is much appreciated. We're trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. It's so far, fingers crossed, it's going pretty quickly. Today we're getting back on the Mazda. If you followed along last week, we got the lower bars in place, tabs in place, made up some bean-shaped tabs and tabs on the opposite side, and this cross member that we matched to both sides. This week, or weekend, we're going to be making the upper wishbone. So it'll come off the rear straight and then have a split off to the side, and that will finish up the 3-link. To do so, I need to come up with something that comes across. The gas tank is mounted here. As much as I like factory gas tanks, man, would have been easier just to put it in the back. But when I started this, I kept saying I wanted to keep the factory gas tank, and that's what we've been trying to do. So we've been working around pretty much everything is just to accommodate for that factory gas tank location. I don't know if at this point it was actually worth it, but it is what it is. We are too far into this and there's no turning back. Even though I could probably just cut the mounts off and put a fuel cell in the back, but I've never been a fan of fuel cells. I've had them in a couple trucks that I've had, and it's just not my thing. I don't like the whole holding the hose over the bed so you don't scratch up the paint, and just the process of it. And if the gasket goes bad on the top of it, because I daily drive most of my projects like this, if the gasket goes bad, then your fuel cell gets water in it, and I don't know. I'd rather avoid it. I'm rambling about it. So I need to be roughly 8 inches above the center line of this bolt to tie into that for everything to stay correct as far as pinion angle goes. So I believe I'm going to be building something that comes off of the frame over, and since the gas tank's there, we're going to tie into this guy. That's why I made this so big, so it would give me some options for, I think when this comes up and over, tie into here, and then maybe make a bar that droops and ties into this also. It kind of follows these curves, and it gets a little bit organic-y looking going through here, but I try to make everything symmetrical and mirrored, as you can see here, to where it's appealing to the eye, even though nobody will ever see this again after the bed's on, except for people that watch this video. But yeah, I'm rambling, so I gotta put the gas tank in and we'll start cutting some stuff up. So don't forget to subscribe. It'd be much appreciated, and follow along on this, what feels like way too long of a build process already, but I pretty much only working on the weekends project that I keep rambling about. Yeah, follow along. So last week when I was in here messing around, I made these tabs. I think I made them just a tiny bit too short. I don't know. It might be alright. It seems like there's plenty of clearance, and that's pretty much all I'm worried about. The thing I have to worry about mainly is having enough height between the top of this and my raised bed floor. But with this on here, and it having a little bit of a curve, it is really close. So I think what we're going to start by doing is making a set of tabs. Like, that's not actually touching. There is a gap there. I think we're going to make a set of tabs just a hair longer than these guys. I don't want to go any bigger than maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch taller than these. Make these up. We're just going to make a bar that's roughly just a tiny bit shorter than the lower bars, and then build off of that. I just need something to go by. I don't think I'm going to build the cross member first. I think making the bar, the center bar first, and then going and building around it is probably my best bet. And again, all of the tabs that I bought, I purchased with the idea of making the 4-link 9/16, and then I changed my mind, and now we're doing everything in 5/8. So these need to be opened up a little bit to the 5/8. When I started this project, I did something that was out of my norm. I hopped on eBay, and I was like, man, I'm just gonna buy a bunch of tabs. I can modify those tabs. It's gonna save me so much time. It's gonna be cheaper because I won't have to, like, I don't know, time is money, I guess, and all the time wasted making stuff. And I enjoy making this stuff. I was trying to be quick about it. That way I could make the videos quicker. Blah 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 blah. Me probably being lazy because I'm getting old. I bought a lot of tabs. A bunch of random tabs in here. Tabs of all different shapes and sizes. Tabs, tabs, and tabs. Whole bunch. I bought tabs for the rear, tabs for the front, all that stuff, and so far we're using 2 of them. 2 of everything I've done so far, which isn't a lot of tabs, but I bought tabs to do this, and they didn't work out. I should have just kept my money. They'll get used on something else. They're not gonna go to waste, but just figured I'd ramble for a little bit and let y'all know that I spent money on something I shouldn't have, like normal. I'm gonna take one of these guys. I cannot manage to keep one of those on a flat surface. I'm gonna take, what am I doing here? One of these and make it a little longer and cut those down. So we're just gonna come up with a random measurement. Trace it onto the second one. Highly recommend when you're doing 4-link bars like this to cut the fish mouth or bird's mouth or the coping of the end of it before you cut the bar down. This bar is way too long for what I'm doing. But if you cut it before, instead of chopping the bar and then trying to cope the end of it, if you cut it before and the cope doesn't work out the way you wanted it to because you have a tubing notcher from 20 years ago and it's not in the best shape of its life, you can always just move it over and cut it again instead of tossing that bar, having to make the bar shorter. Just cope it first. That might be common sense, but for somebody that's never done this before, maybe they don't know that. Even though this old, what is this thing? A Woodward Fab notcher is old and kind of wore out. It makes some pretty good notches still for being such a simple tool. I would like to upgrade this eventually because there's a lot of tubing notching in my future, but for now, this old thing and this Milwaukee hole saw has built probably 6 lowriders now, a couple bag trucks. This is perfect size for cylinders for lowrider hydraulic setups. Perfect size for this. That thing, as long as you lube them and take care of them, they last a very, very long time. It is still sharp. Alright, so we have the PVC mock-up bar. It is roughly half an inch shorter than the lowers. I know that the more equal they are, the less likely the pinion is going to change drastically throughout its travel. So we're going to go with pretty much the same length. Use the PVC as a general judge. You see it's just taped to a bar end, and I had another bar end taped here. Align these together, mark it, cut it, tack weld it together. So we're going to do that, and then we'll set the upper bar into place and try to suspend it somehow, get it tack welded in there, and hopefully we'll start making a cross member. This is why I'm a big fan of the PVC mock-up bar. This stuff is cheap. When you get done with it, you got some random stuff you could possibly do some repairs around your house with. Line it up, mark it, you know you're good to go, because you already made a bar, just a ghetto bar. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Cut it, we'll go from there. This extremely thick DOM, you want to make sure, if you buy this, this is 100% what you, before you cut it, that's exactly what you need, because this stuff has gotten extremely expensive. It's always been expensive, but 2 sticks of this, it hurt. I had to, after I hit the buy button, I had to go lay down. What I like to do is go through and taper the edge. That way when you weld it, it's more appealing, it's stronger, there's more bite into the pipe. That is a precise fit. Good job on whoever makes these things off of eBay. See what I mean? Build out a little weld, have a nice taper to it. It'll be stronger. It looks really nice. So, need to get a tack on this bar end on the other side. Try to figure out some way to position it on there with one set of hands and a welder. Gotta get creative. Oh, I also need to take the paint off the rear. It's like everything else in my garage, my bench is absolutely covered in crap. So there's not a lot of welding going on over there right now because I don't feel like moving any of that. So we're gonna use the frame rail of the truck. I got the bar end set in place. Got my perfect alignment here with 2 different styles of 1/2-inch washers on both ends to give me the correct spacing up and down. I'm gonna get these tack welded together. If you don't have the suspension design book from Max Fish, I highly recommend purchasing that. It gives you a lot of helpful tips and tricks and things to make this work correctly. Back in the day, it was like judging everything off of some guy on, what was it, like Car Domain and I don't know, some other random forums that we used to be able to use back in the day. So that was all hearsay junk. Like one guy would say this, another guy would say that, and they would argue back and forth, and then they would put sticky threads on this and that, and you didn't know where to go. So you just kind of crafted together unless you knew somebody that actually knew suspension design. So having that book is a very good direction to go. So I'll try to ramble off and not try to sound like a complete idiot on how this is going to work. So using the book, it gives you links to their website, and there's calculators in their website that tell you exactly how to set this up to where it works perfectly fine every time. I'll try to do this to where I don't get confused and you don't get confused. So you need to know the distance between this tab and your upper tab, the center of the bolts. You know the distance between this tab and this tab, center of the bolts. So we got 24 on here, we got 11.5 on here, and the distance between the center of this axle and your instant center, and on a bag truck they recommend roughly the front bumper. So roughly the front bumper is 136 inches. The distance between my lower bars is 24 inches. The distance between the tabs on the rear is 11 and a half. And when you do that, it spits out the exact number that you need to be at for this center line to the center line of your upper bars. And that distance for me is 9.5, basically 9.47. We're gonna go up a little bit because I need as much room as I can work with here. So I got my little tripod out, pushed my little tripod as close to this bolt as I can, measured it from the center of this guy to the center of that bushing, and I gotta lock that in place and then build around it. At 9.5, it gives me like just enough room to have clearance between the drive shaft and that upper bar when I am laid out. So I need to, I'm going to confirm on this guy one more time. I'm definitely at that spot. I'm going to center this bar, tack weld it in place up there, and then we're going to start building the cross member with that random piece of pipe that I bent up the other day. And yeah, enough rambling, and hopefully that sort of made sense, because there was a lot of gibberish all in like a 2-minute span. So if it didn't make sense, I'm sorry. Get back to work. Alright, after double checking about, well, I'm going to say double checking 4 times, but that doesn't make sense. After checking it 4 times, this is centered. It measures out right, so we're going to tack it in. It helps if you have a ground on the part you're trying to weld. It helps if you have a ground to the welder you're trying to use. There you go. Alright, set the gas tank back in. We're actually got plenty of clearance between our lower bar bolt. This is the room that we have to work with. I like to utilize the bar that I already have. I don't really think it's going to matter if I chop it and sleeve it and plug weld it. I don't see it being a big deal. Material to completely remake this. The material that I have over here is kind of spoken for on the rest of the project. I think if I make it out of multiple pieces and I sleeve it and I brace it and all of that, I think it'll be plenty strong enough. If I place the cuts and sleeves with some sense, I can make it strong. I know that I definitely don't want it to just go up and terminate and just be a bar floating in nowhere. So I think we have to get creative on this. Right, this is what I'm thinking. I'm going to attempt to use some tabs that I actually purchased. I don't know if it's going to work out, but... So I need to go in roughly about 1 inch or so. But my idea here, notch, go into that tube. I'm going to cut it off at that line, come down with another 90. I have material that fits perfectly inside of there, so I can sleeve it. So it'll be a sleeve roughly around here. So over, down, and then I think I'm going to brace it again here, so it'll be curve, brace, down. I gotta start cutting some stuff up. I cut that big bar in half, so I got 2 curves and 1 random little piece. So I'm gonna notch that now and see where we can get from there. I got the upper link centered. I got my bars tack welded in. Let's tacked over there, tacked over here. I drilled 4 rosettes, spot welds, whatever you want to call them. In this, there's a sleeved pipe inside of here. So there's holes, 90 degrees holes. So I'll go through and TIG this together, fill these in. I don't think that's going to affect any strength at all. So need to tack weld that guy in place. Once that's tack welded in, I am going to go ahead and make this bar. I need to figure out exactly how long I want to go with this guy. Not 100% sure yet how far up I want to go. I'm thinking kind of just enough to avoid this bar, so somewhere in this range, but we're looking pretty good so far. Got this, if you can see it, it's level this way. It's kind of hard to tell because this bar curves up and this comes down and curves towards the frame, but it's square to here, so building this should be pretty straightforward. Yeah, we're making progress. I'll go ahead and get this tacked in here and start coming up with this guy. I think before I go any further, just to put some rigidity in this, I don't want to weld it all together yet, but I'm going to make the bar that braces between here and here. I still think I'd like to do one that kind of matches this guy. The only thing is, it's right on top of my hanger there, so I'm not sure how I want to go about this. I know this will add some strength because that bar is constantly pulling and pushing on this whole assembly. So definitely going to add that. I'll make this and we'll go from there. Tack welded in place, and my hopes to use the foiling tabs that I bought. It's not going to happen. You can use it on the inner one. I'll be able to use the other ones over here, but I got to make this little guy because that bend is as tight as I could get it. So there's no way to push the bend further in without beating the hell out of the gas tank. So I'm going to have to make one of those to get that centered up. But for tonight, it's pretty good progress. We're moving along.
All right, so day 19 million of the Mazda project. We're going to be working on the upper bar here. Probably going to do some gussets on all of it, because this thing makes about 19.5 billion horsepower, and we need to.
We're gonna make tabs.
We gotta strengthen it up, make some tabs.
And we're gonna make the elbow portion.
Yeah, lots of elbows. So it's just, and knees. We're gonna make some knees too.
You gotta point at it, tell them what we're gonna do.
Yeah, we're gonna point at this and tell them what we're gonna do.
Over here, we're gonna do it.
GoPro stop recording. GoPro stop recording.
All right, we are back another day working on the 3-link. That was Jared trying his debut YouTube premiere. I need to make this bar into a wishbone and make it strong. So we finagled the tubing bender out of the hole, and we're going to cross our fingers that we don't waste extremely expensive tubing that hurts to use and purchase, and hopefully we get it right the first time. Alright, we are a little bit past 90, which is, it's okay. It's not crazy past 90. It's kind of hard to even tell, but I'm going to notch this side first, because this can be pretty much anywhere in that line, and then cope this end after the fact. So we're sitting here talking about how overly priced this extremely thick steel is. It's roughly $157-ish for a stick. So that makes it, every time you cut off 2 inches, it's
$2.16 per inch.
$2.16 an inch. Let that sink in a little bit. It's terrible. So me trimming this down because I gave myself a little bit of length. Here goes $2, and
That's like $3
yeah,
right there.
we're gonna eat away another probably $4 or $6 by the time we get done coping this, because I was like, yeah, I give myself a little length so I don't cut myself short. Cutting myself short would cost a lot of money, but even giving myself a little bit of length costs
A lot of money.
cost me about $10. All right, after wasting like I don't know,
11 and a half cuts.
yeah, we probably cut off like $15, half an inch at a time. I really didn't want to I really didn't want to make it too short. I was trying to like work my way up into it fitting into my single Sharpie line here. That exact measurement of me just winging it. But yeah, this should clear frame rails. It should fit within the thing over there. So now I need to tag it all in place. Got my high-tech measurement tools here to ensure everything is level and where it's supposed to be. So we're gonna stop rambling and actually weld this together. Alright, we're all tacked together. Our gaps are looking good. And I didn't explain what was going on here. This is a cheap, effective way of mocking up bushings like this. It's just a piece of, this is actually 3/4 inch because I couldn't find the 5/8 rod. So I'll pull the 3/4 inch ones out, slap the 5/8 ones back in there. That'll be on the truck, but 3/4 inch rod from Home Depot, mock up bushings. It keeps everything in line to where you know that when this thing's doing its thing, it's not gonna get bound up or ruin bushings over time because it's square and all of whatnot. So now we need to set it back on the truck. So we have wishbonage. It's kind of big, but I wanted a wide stance on it to utilize as much of this space as possible. But it doesn't look too bad. This is kind of big and bulky, but it's cool. Need to make a tab for this side. Get this stuff all tack welded in, and then we can cut the U-bolts off and cycle it through the suspension to make sure it actually works. And it's not gonna fall off or like touch stuff that it's not supposed to touch. Fingers crossed. That is just a little too short, probably about half an inch. So we made, maybe an inch. We made the other minion to go along with it. So we're going to make this tab from scratch. Oh. Alright, everything is tack welded in. Got the last tab made up. So far, I have used 5 tabs out of the, I don't know, 30, 40 tabs that I bought originally. Big thanks to Jared for coming over today and assisting with this, because holding all this stuff in place by myself wasn't really an option. I didn't have enough arms, or I didn't get creative enough to do that, so definitely thanks to him. Now that all of this stuff is tack welded together, it's the moment of truth. So we're gonna cut the welds off the U-bolts and cycle the suspension up and down and see what happens. Hopefully, well, I need to put a draft shaft in it too. Hopefully, pinion angle stays correct and the axle doesn't go in and out and nothing moves in any weird direction. So let's go ahead and cut these bolts and see where we are. Fingers crossed. Everything worked out pretty good. I am pretty, like really close to the front mount of the wishbone, but if you watch my previous videos about this, I took out a 1/2 inch of the C-notch, that way I could tail drag a little bit, but in doing that 1/2 inch, I was also pre-planning to put a small thin bump stop in. They sell bump stops that are about the size of a Sacagawea coin and about 1/2 inch tall, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, something like that. I can tap the bottom of the C-notch and thread that in there. That way, because I drive everything with it on the ground, I don't even know why I have adjustable suspension vehicles, because basically I just float everywhere I go. We're getting off track here. So there's going to be a thin bump stop on the bottom of the C-notch that I accommodated for, but when I fixed all of this stuff, I took out a 1/2 inch. I'm probably only adding in roughly 1/4, maybe a little bit more. So right now it's sitting on some 1/4 inch shims. That way I can get an idea of how this is going to play out. And with that 1/4 inch shim in there, it is plenty enough clearance between the drive shaft and that upper link. It's really close, but it doesn't touch. Even with the shim removed, it's very close, but it doesn't touch. So I'm okay with that. And after cycling everything like 10 times with the jack, everything moves and goes in a really good arc. There's no crazy pinion change. The rear end doesn't shift forward and reverse like crazy. Everything is working as it should. Like I said, this is the only thing that's close, but it doesn't touch. There's no way for it to touch. Again, the truck laid out. It flat on the ground before I removed that 1/2 inch. So if you're watching this and you're like, oh well, that doesn't make any sense, when you pull that shim out of there, it's going to touch. It doesn't actually touch. I'm working on it. I got an idea. Okay, so I think that was everything. So where are we going here? The next week's video is going to be on the lower bag mounts. I have this style. I have these mock-up bags that I showed everybody how to make on like 3 or 4 weeks ago video. They're gonna sit right around here. I'm not positive if I can utilize that bar just yet. That's what I'm hoping for, but it's kind of not looking like it's gonna work out that way. But if you tune back in next week, you'll see these hopefully welded in with an airbag attached to it. And I'm gonna go ahead and burn all that stuff in. So I appreciate you stopping by and watching me ramble. Don't forget to subscribe. Again, thank you for all the new subscribers. We're picking them up pretty steady, which is awesome. I really appreciate that. So thanks for watching me ramble, and don't forget to subscribe and check me out next week. Try to get this out. Tonight's Sunday. Try to get it out by Monday. So yeah, thanks again.